This one?
Pardon me?
Yeah, he's looking that way? Look that way.
This way.
This way. That's why I was trying to get away from
Post-traumatic stress disorder. When we got back, no one understood it, including the VA. It was not in the manual of mental health illnesses. So as far as the VA was concerned, it didn't exist. They treated it somewhat on a cursory basis, as they did in World War II when they brought veterans back that had shell shock. But it wasn't until it was actually indicated that it was post-traumatic stress disorder, actually named and put into their manual, that the VA started reacting to it. And they started putting on mental health specialists. They created a mental health department and added people to it, which was all well and good in the first, but today the people they have just aren't effective. But why did the Vietnam veteran have the issues that they had with PTSD? First of all, we were the youngest army that America had ever put in the field, age 19. The average age of the World War II veteran was 26. At 19, 18, our brains aren't fully formed yet. Okay? We were the youngest army ever to go to war for this country. Again, we were still wet behind the ears. We couldn't vote. We were immature. We couldn't buy a beer. The rotation system. In World War II, in less than 3 years, and actually, if you're talking Europe, just a little over a year, because D-Day wasn't until 44 and Germany capitulated in 45, there were over 16 million that served in that time period. They trained as a unit, they went over on ship as a unit, and they fought as a unit. But when they fought, they were pulled back and another unit would replace them. So in Vietnam, they didn't have units to put in Vietnam to rotate, because we had so many men in Europe, we had so many men in Japan, we had so many men in Korea. They didn't have units, so the units that they put in Vietnam stayed. An example would be the 1st Cavalry Division. They were in country in 1965. You may have heard of the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson. If you saw that movie, that's the 1st Cavalry fighting in 1965. That unit did not rotate until 1972. From 65 to 72, that unit stayed in there. How did it stay in there? The rotation system, one guy at a time. We went through boot camp as a unit. We went through ITR, but we mixed with other people we didn't know. And then we went to Vietnam on a plane with a lot of people we didn't know. And then when we got in country, we were sent one person at a time. I was told that afternoon after I got there that I was to go to this Delta Battery, 2nd Battalion, 11th Marines, 1st Marine Division. What the hell is that? I don't know what it is. Artillery battery. Whoa, wait a minute, I'm a truck driver. You guys got this all wrong. I stay back here and I carry you guys from the plane over here. Well, it didn't work that way. I ended up being a grunt, doing OP, going out on patrols. I ended up being a cannon cocker. I worked those guns. And then, when I had time, I did my job, which I changed from truck driver to mechanic. But that was the last thing that I did. But it was a one person that I went to that unit, and I was that cherry. I was that FNG. Okay. Luckily, the mechanic was from Illinois, not too far from where I lived. And so we were able to connect early on that point. Jet setters, I can't begin to explain to you what it's like to totally change your environment in 5 days, at the most 5 days. It could be 3 days, but to totally change your environment and to change it to a hostile environment, to change the country you're in, and to change the circumstances in 5 days, and not be prepared and not be changed for it, or ready for it. We jetted in. I did a recognition about 4 weeks ago on a Sunday. The Veterans Center in Merritt Island, the Military Order of the Purple Heart recognized some Purple Heart recipients. And it takes a Purple Heart recipient to recognize another Purple Heart recipient. And I recognized, and traditionally it's the Purple Heart recipient and the wife, children, whoever. In my case, this man had died last December. So it was his wife, his daughter, and husband, who on that very day retired from the Air Force with 22 years. He got an ovation from the crowd. He was in a firefight and was actually grabbed and said, "You're going home." And 5 days later, he's home. Now, as the protests started growing and the animosity against the Vietnam veterans started growing, and a lot of it has to do with John Kerry, then America almost seemed as foreign as what Vietnam did a year, or for Marine Corps, 13 months. Now, a little bit of trivia. Anybody know why Marines are first to fight? Because we're the meanest, baddest? Maybe not. No. We are what's called the president's own. If something erupts somewhere, he can deploy the Marines right now. To deploy the Army or any of the other branches, he has to get congressional approval. Those two, I should make a word out of those two. He has to get approval, but the Marines, he can go right now. The other thing is, Marines had 13-month tour duty of Vietnam, Army had 12. Why? Because we're the meanest, we're the baddest. No. When they said, we're going to go to Vietnam, we're going to send the Marines, well, the Marines always float, so it's going to take them 2 weeks to get there, and then when they leave, it's going to take them 2 weeks to come home, and then they got their 12 months they can fight. No. We got on a jet just like everyone else. Did they take that extra 2 weeks and 2 weeks away? No. So we had 13 months over there.
Got chipped.
Combat. That World War II veteran, you can look it up, and we're so smart now, we can ask our phone. The average days of combat for the World War II veteran was 40 days. Because of the rotation system, the average day of the Vietnam veterans combat was 240 days. 240 days. Why do we have PTSD? Okay. The closet veteran, I mentioned that to you. We came home, couldn't wear our uniforms, don't tell anyone. I worked with someone for 15 years, and he didn't know I was in the military. That's what contributed to our PTSD, that the World War II veteran didn't have to, wasn't exposed to. All the symptoms of PTSD. Originally it was called soldier's heart in World War I. Okay, and then shell shock. No, this is, I'm sorry, the Civil War. The artwork that you see on the Agent Orange wall, and this artwork here is all by another friend of mine that has the largest website on Facebook for Vietnam veterans. It's called The Nam. His name is Boone. Another friend of mine, Paul Kufferman, he was at the 7th Cavalry of the 25th, and Paul died like Jared from liver cancer. This man here, Steve Todd, 6 Bronze Stars, 6 Bronze Stars, all for being hero stuff, like holding off the enemy with an M60 so his people could regroup, being a tunnel rat, just a real hero. The last 2
Tunnel
years,
rat.
pardon me?
What's a tunnel rat? What is a tunnel rat? Is that what you said?
Tunnel,
Tunnel, yeah,
Tunnel
he
rat.
said tunnel rat.
Oh,
That's what he said.
the whole,
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
That's what you said, that's what you said.
the whole
It's all good.
topography underneath was just like the hills in Iwo Jima. They were all integrated with tunnels.
Oh, okay.
Probably got
And
from
in
one place
fact,
to
the
another,
main
so-
mountain that we were on outside of Da Nang, that we had communications radar and we had missiles on it, we found out after the war that they had a big hospital and they had many other things in the mountain that we were on top of. Okay? Tunnel rat, and you'd go and you'd find a tunnel and somebody would have to go in and check it. And that's the worst, scariest stuff you ever want to do, is be handed a 45 and say go.
And they were guys in units that were specifically good at doing that, so I guess we did it all the time.
Yeah. And it was
Over and
the
over.
little guys that would fit in the tunnel. Well, Steve here, his last 2 years of his life, he laid in a hospital bed in his home, only able to move his eyes and eyelids. Agent Orange Lou Gehrig's disease. Okay? Parkinson's, I had a classmate die of Parkinson's, hideous. Okay? So, let me show you some things over here on this wall. And, oh, sorry. Sit down.
No, go ahead.
Get out of the film crews, Will.
The Vietnam veteran was vilified, crucified, and he was just the lowest of the low soldier that ever existed. And we kept getting crucified and crucified and crucified by the protesters. And this is one of the things we got crucified for. This young lady running with the napalm burns. Okay, very famous photograph. Okay, the village was bombed with napalm, which is a chemical that gets on you and it just burns. These were not our planes. These were South Vietnamese planes that dropped the bombs on that village. But we got crucified. Okay. This photo here is very famous. This is a South Vietnamese general. He's executing a man, and boy, when that came,
I remember
that was,
as a kid.
they say that was the picture that ended the war, because the protest guts. What people don't know is he is a VC, North Vietnamese, I'm sorry, NVA, and he's in civilian clothes, and he was going and terrorizing, and he killed a South Vietnamese general, his family, and 8 other people. And he was caught. And he was in civilian clothes, and because of that, he could be executed immediately. And that's what that was a justified execution. But boy, that
story didn't come out.
that
Media hasn't changed a whole lot
hammer is
in
bad.
that many years.
That
so
hammer is
just
bad.
so you're aware.
March 29th, which is Vietnam Veterans Day, March 29th, 1973, 2 months before Saigon fell, the last of 540,000 troops that were in country left. They were gone. No more American soldiers in Vietnam except for a Marine Corps detachment that was the guards at the embassy. That's the only soldiers that were in country. Okay? 25 months later, this picture, and the news is saying we lost the war, America lost the war in Vietnam, and Saigon fell. And people view this picture as American soldiers leaving Vietnam. I had a Vietnam veteran that was there early like myself, and he actually thought those were veterans leaving. This isn't even a military helicopter. This is a CIA Air America helicopter, okay? It's not a military helicopter. And these are people that worked for the CIA in this building. This isn't the embassy trying to get out of there, okay? But, and as it happened, this man that flew it was from here in Melbourne, lived here in Melbourne. He's died a couple years ago. So, we now have lost the war, and that's another stigma that the Vietnam veteran has, plus all these crucifixions, plus the Tet Offensive. And on TV before the Tet Offensive, we were the good guys. We were there for a reason, we were there for a purpose, okay? After the Tet Offensive, Westmoreland told a big story how we're winning, and he just made such a beautiful rosy picture, and then Tet hit, and then the public saying, what? And it broke out in over 100 cities in the entire South Vietnam. Okay? It was repelled. We had Khe Sanh, we had Hue City, Saigon. We had all of these areas that we repelled the South. The Battle of the Bulge, which we all know is a victorious World War II battle, I believe there were 12,000 German casualties during the Battle of the Bulge. We had over 60,000 casualties that we inflicted during the Tet Offensive. We were victorious. We lost less people, and we had a lot more casualties. It should have been our crowning glory. Instead, it was the cross that we were hung up on. This young lady here, BC, she's a sniper. She had 66 confirmed American kills. This man here, Carlos Hatchcock, Marine Corps sniper, he's the one that took her out. Fascinating book, Marine Sniper, 93 confirmed kills. You ought to read that, Sam. You would enjoy it. It's a gritty book. It's a very gritty book to read. However, it is one of the truest pictures of how the Vietnamese village was caught in between the VC and in between us. The VC had a big presence. We weren't addressing that presence with the VC, and they terrorized those villages. They made them do things. An example in this book is they give this old man that could not be a soldier, they gave him a beat-up AK-47 and 20 rounds every night that he had to go out and fire, or else a member of his family would be killed. So it was just a harassment fire, but he had to take those out and fire them, or else somebody in his family would be killed.